This week, we're going to be taking a look at curriculum and assessment. Honestly, curriculum and assessment is probably something I could have given you as an educational issue to choose because this is a heavily debated topic in the field of education. How do we determine what students are supposed to learn? How do we determine the curriculum? And then, probably even more so debated, is how do we assess that learning? Do we give a standardized test? Do we give an EOG or an ACT, SAT? How do we determine if a student is proficient in subjects like reading and math? So you're going to be exploring this topic. You're going to read chapter 4, which is titled Curriculum Assessment and Accountability. And then you're going to do 2 assignments. And so I'm going to show you those, and then we're going to delve a little bit further into the first one. The first assignment is you exploring the North Carolina Standard Course of Study. So I'm going to show you that site in just a second, but you're going to be filling out this worksheet here and answering those questions and then submitting them here. And then your second assignment is a quiz on chapter 4. It's going to be 20 multiple choice questions. You're going to have 1 hour and 1 attempt on this quiz. So let's go back to that first assignment, which is exploring the North Carolina Standard Course of Study. And before you delve into this worksheet, I want to first show you, linked right here, this is where you're going to click, I want to show you the North Carolina Standard Course of Study site, and then show you how to find the information that you need for this worksheet. So this is the site for the North Carolina Standard Course of Study. We're not in this class going to do that much of a deep dive into standards and how to use standards for lesson planning. That is something, if you're a teacher prep student, if you go on to take EDU 187 with me, we will be doing more of an in-depth look at standards and how to use them. Also, if you don't take EDU 187, that's not a big deal. You will certainly be using standards throughout your bachelor's degree in your future EDU courses, and also too in your professional development when you get your first teaching job. But I do think it's important for you to know where they're located and what they look like. And so on this site here, the first thing you're going to see is different subject areas. If you're planning to teach high school, this is where you're going to want to concentrate here. If you are teaching K through 8, or that's your intended grade levels, you'll see down here at the bottom these quick reference guides. And the reason being for these is you are usually going to teach multiple subject areas in these grade levels. And so I'll show you an example. This is one for 7th grade here. So this is a quick reference guide. And what they've done is they've put all the standards you could see here, from everything from arts education to math to science to social studies. They are all in one document. However, I would just be cautious with the quick reference guides, because just like it sounds, it's a quick reference guide. It's not going to go as in depth into these standards as the actual standards document will. So let me go back up here and I'll show you an actual standard course of study. So just based on my background, I'm going to choose math. So I will admit the standard course of study for your particular grade level and subject area, it is pretty difficult to find. It's a bit of a treasure hunt to find it on the site, so I'm going to walk through this slowly. If you do encounter any issues with finding your standard course of study, please don't hesitate to reach out to me and I can help you locate it. So when I click on math, I can scroll down here towards the bottom and it's got all this information and resources, but there is a link here that says standard course of study. Again, when I click on that page, it's going to bring up instructional resources and charts, but you can see here at the top, it's hyperlinked where the standards are viewed and sorted. So I'm going to click here and it's going to bring me to this page. And so I can choose a grade level and I can choose a document type. I would suggest choosing standards, so it's just going to pull standards here. And so these are all the standards for K through 12 for math, and I'm going to scroll down and choose grades 6 through 8. And so finally, when I click here, there's a link at the top that has a PDF, and these are the standards for math in grades 6 through 8. And so your standards will be highlighted in bold, and then usually underneath each standard you have the various objectives that are associated with that standard. So objectives are a little bit more specific than your standards. Standards paint more or less a broad picture of what you're supposed to be teaching, and objectives again are very specific. And so you can scroll through here and see all, again, here's your standards, and here's your objectives underneath. If I was a 6th grade math teacher, I would want to make sure by the end of the year that I have touched on every single objective here, every single standard, because this is what my students are expected to know by the end of the year, and this is what they're going to be assessed on throughout the year. And so now let's take a look at what you're going to be doing with these standards in terms of your assignment. So in question number 1, I just want to know, in your opinion, what is the purpose of the standard course of study, and why do you think it's important for all teachers in North Carolina to follow these standards? And then I want you to locate your grade level and subject area that you're interested in. Now, if you're an elementary school teacher, just choose one subject area. So, for example, language arts, math, science, social studies. I want you to select one standard and state it here. And then how could you connect this standard to real-world skills or knowledge that students need? Part C is describe 2 activities or instructional strategies. So basically, how would you teach this standard to future students? How would you help them in mastering it? And then what kind of assessment methods would you give students to determine whether or not they've understood that standard? And then question number 3, I want you to find a standard from the same grade level. So for example, I could do 6th grade again, but then I could choose a different subject area. So maybe I could choose social studies. And find a standard that complements the standard that you selected. So for example, maybe the standard that I selected deals with calculating the unit price. Could I find a standard in social studies where they're studying a different country, and maybe I do an interdisciplinary planning where I talk about that other country in my math class, but maybe we talk about the price of that particular item in that country and compare it to the unit price maybe in the United States. So how could I connect with a different subject area and integrate it into my teaching? And then in question number 4, I want you to know, why is it important that we periodically review and update standards? Typically, standards are updated every 5 years. And then after you look at your standard, if you could propose one change or addition to the standards in your grade level and subject area, what kind of changes would you implement, and why would you make those changes? And then finally, in question number 5, I want to know how is this document, how are these standards going to impact you as a future educator in the state of North Carolina? If you have any questions at all about this assignment or your quiz that you're completing this week, please just let me know.